Hey guys, Joke the Fool here, back at it again with what I believe is the 17th episode of Poll Review. And if you don't know what Poll Review is, I do the daily poll on the Exclusively Games forum, not official or anything like that. And every week I go through the last 7 daily polls and I go into why I picked the topic, the results of the voting itself, and then some of the replies of you guys below. But without further ado, we're going to start with Daily Poll 113. Have you ever played a game's beta? And this isn't one I did for any particular reason. I was just thinking about game betas and how a lot of them are more or less just a thing that comes out a month or so before the game comes out, and it's just meant to hype you up to pre-order the game. We saw this with Anthem, we saw this with Fallout 76, and that has been the case with most of the Call of Duties since, basically every Call of Duty since since Black Ops 3, I think. But with that said, we're going to go into the results. 13% said you never played a beta, 35% have played one, 5% have played two, 2% have played 3, and then 43% of you guys have played more than 3 betas. So pretty split again. Pretty split. There's good distribution against with all the options. But without further ado, we want to get into the replies, and we've got Jack of Tears who says, if you ever played a game, Jack of Tears says, if you've ever played an early release game, you're playing a beta. Hell, these days, if you play a AAA game on release, you're usually playing a beta. Once upon a time, it was a big deal to get into game betas, and he was in several MMO betas before he lost faith in the game genre. The beta for Guild Wars 2 pre-order, beta for Guild Wars 2 pre-order customers was very rewarding. The community gave solid feedback on the game, and the devs acted on that feedback, felt like a real part of the process, and the game was better for that engagement. These days, betas are just advertising scams, and the devs will actively act in contradiction to player feedback. And I can definitely understand where Jack is coming at this, and this was what I was talking about a little bit before. I was talking about the actual betas that devs run, but if you look at Fallout 76 and Anthem, they're essentially beta versions of games or early accesses. It's seemingly something that indie devs are very upfront about their game being early access, but nowadays if you buy a AAA game, it's essentially a $60 early access game, and the roadmaps are definitive proof of that. So I have to agree with Jack that a lot of AAA games are early access rather than full complete products, but you still got a good amount of games. Most Nintendo doesn't really do this stuff. We got Cyberpunk coming up, and that's definitely not going to be a beta. But we're going to go to the next reply, and we've got Necromancer69 who says he's played the Payday 2 beta. He regrets it because it showed him how much was missing from the game and how they make it less fun. And he talks about some of the things like safe house customization, lack of big banks, witness the removal fun of the game, and then mentions some monetization, loot boxes, and those sorts of things. And I picked this one. This is an interesting thing because when you play a beta version of the game and then the final, there's a big stark difference between the two, and sometimes you could like the beta more than the final or vice versa. And the first game I ever bought on Steam was Don't Starve, and that was an early access game, or it was a beta version. And I went and played it years later after it was a final release, and I was sort of missing this sort of simplicity of the beta version compared to the final product. I'm not going to say that Don't Starve is a bad game. It's just that the game I remember isn't the game that I remember Don't Starve being isn't the same as it is now, which a lot of people are going to say it's a good thing, but for me it's just like there was a certain gameplay loop I was accustomed to that just wasn't there anymore. So that's Necromancer's like in the in the reverse, maybe you like the beta more, or realize that the final game didn't change too much from it. So if you're watching this, Necromancer, if you want to explain it more, but it seems like you have a problem with Payday 2. That's the most I can get from it. But we are going to move on to the 114th daily poll. Have you ever reviewed a game? Another one that just came randomly into my head. Reviews have been talked about a lot, in terms of review bombing and, how critics review games are often jump the shark with certain things. There's plenty of examples that I don't have the time or wherewithal to get into. So reviews, big topic. It gets debated a lot in terms of are they valid, or which ones you should even read, or if you should even read them at all. But we're going to get into the results, which about a core review. I've never reviewed a game. 51% of left a user review on a platform: Steam, Metacritic, Amazon, GOG, etc. 3% of you guys have reviewed a game on a non-user review platform. So there's a blog post, your own blog, something like, the EG forums review section, those sorts of things. And then 18% of you guys have left a user review and reviewed a game on a non-user review platform, which I've personally done. I've reviewed a few games. I've reviewed a few games on exclusively games. I've left a few Steam reviews. So I'm not a prolific game reviewer, but I've done a few. But we're going to go to the replies, and we've got Dark Tranquility, who says, "No, but thank you to the people who do, because I don't trust shit from review sites." And Dark's got it a lot, because Dark's got it. I think Dark's on the money here, because a lot of what you'll see from IGN or Kotaku or Polygon, those reviews, it's usually just one perspective. It's always going to be one perspective, and usually, a lot of it you'll see, personal politics being injected into it. I'm not saying that's a right or wrong thing for someone to bring their personal politics and affect that review of game. If that's, the way you review your game, then that's fine. But if you're just saying is it fun to play the game, someone ranting about, how this or that was offensive isn't really going to help you with that. It was, something like Steam reviews, sure, they're usually going to be a lot shorter, less reliable, but you can get a whole bunch of different perspectives. You can, see how much people actually played the game, and there are people who put a lot of effort into Steam reviews, and there are one to say this game is awesome or this game's shit. It's just really a mixed bag. But when you've got that many, you can go with a couple of shit ones, and that's not much of a problem. But on a single site or even Metacritic, there's so few reviews, and a lot of them are usually the same. They stay within the same number range unless the game's really, really bad. And I haven't read any actual reviews, but I can't imagine them being that much different. They'll just say and a lot of them are just describing what the game is. It's the game's this is the next Call of Duty. It's got these modes. I played them for a little bit. I thought it was interesting. Okay, but so that's a little rant on that. I agree with Dark a lot here. User reviews are very useful because the review sites are not that trustworthy. And we're going to go into Repentance Guy, who's left several reviews on Metacritic. Mostly, if he wants to review a game, he'll just go ahead and review it fully himself and post it on Twitter or something, which is pretty interesting. So I chose this one because I think most people who do review games, it just leaves Steam reviews, user reviews on a platform that supports it. But it seems like Repentance Guy, if he reviews a game, he puts it, doesn't puts it on a non-user platform, which is pretty interesting. So that's basically all I got to say about that. So the only comment I saw where someone was actively talking about non-user reviews, so that's why I put it in there. And we're going to move on to the 115th daily poll. Have you ever reviewed bomb a game? So when I did the review, the review one in general, I thought asking people if they ever review bombed a game. And the first daily poll I ever did was on review bombing. I was asking if you approved the general concept or not. Never asking the community directly if you ever review bombed one. So 80, and this is pretty definitive. 84% of you guys have never review bombed the game. I haven't. 9% have review bombed one game, and then 6% have review bombed 2 games. So it's pretty interesting. And so most people review bomb games, and those who do, it's very limited. But we're going to the replies, and this definitely was a very spicy thread. There's a lot of I think it was pretty long. It was definitely a lot of people who had heated takes on both sides. So I'll leave a link to every daily poll I talk about in the description, so you can check out the thread. Pretty good read, I'd say, but definitely, there's going to be some trash talking because it's a bit of a heated subject, and I understand. So we've got Mad Mommy 76 who says most of the time what they call review bombing is actually legitimate criticism of a game or its connected services. For example, they called negative reviews of Ace Combat 7 for not supporting joysticks a review bomb. And then it's like, how's that review bomb? If it's bad game, then it's bad game. And then Mad Mommy says he's never actually review bomb a game. And then also says if a person involved with the production says something appalling, during the actual promotion of the game, then that's another thing. Again, if they say you don't like it, don't buy it, or you're uneducated or something. If you don't like this, then that's open season for negative reviews. As the promotion campaign is part of the product, he thinks. If they promote that, he shouldn't buy it or outright taunt me. I'm not going to hold punches. So I can understand this mindset. I do think, Mad Mommy, there's a value in taking the high road. Like with Battlefield 5, when I think Patrick Sordelin said, if, uneducated, don't like it, don't buy it. I was like, okay, I'm just not going to talk about Battlefield 5 and buy the game. And that's what I did. Yeah, that's what I did. I didn't buy Battlefield 5. I only played it when I paid like $15 for like a month of EA Origin and Premiere just to see how how bad Anthem was, to see the game that is going to kill BioWare. And I played a little bit of Battlefield 5, and it's just Battlefield 1 essentially, with different guns and slightly better graphics, I'd say. So if you already own Battlefield 1, then there's really no reason to get Battlefield 5. And if you don't have either game, I'd say go for Battlefield 1 because it's probably going to be cheaper. And the story's probably going to be better. But DICE isn't really good at single player content. Even when they have it in game, they're not really that good at it. It's not like it's just a bunch of like disconnected stories that are sort of interesting, but there really needs to be like a focus on like one campaign, make it longer, like makes like a actual like timeline of like the war would be really interesting. One or two would be like really, really cool, especially in that engine. Oh, DICE's graphic design is so good. But that's just me ranting about Battlefield 5, about Battlefield. So yeah, well, we'll never be at the point of like Bad Company 2. I wish we could get another Bad Company game, but that's never going to happen. Well, we're going to move on to Macville. He says no because most of the review bombs are shit blown out of proportion or irrelevant to the core gameplay. It's also funny how some people call out every journalist for being unethical yet defend shit like review bombing the Metro games or Rocket League because Epic man bad. So I can agree to an extent with what Macville saying here. Like I'm a very middle of the road guy. I'm a very milquetoast about a lot of things, so I'm like I was try to agree with everybody in some way. So there definitely are a lot of review bombs. There are stuff that I think are like there's a different way to go about things, or it's not the worst thing. Like when Take-Two wasn't letting people mod Grand Theft Auto 5. I don't think that was the best reason to review bomb. It sure was a bad thing. I didn't like it. But Grand Theft Auto 5 still a really good single player without mods. I've never played GTA 5 without mods. So, and I played 60 hours of it, messed around with the multiplayer a bit, and I got bored of it. So I played that whole game. I really liked it, and I thought, even if you can't mod the game, it's still worth buying. And I just wanted to let people know that I said the game. I left a review on Steam. The game is fun while it was being review bombed. So that was my whole take with it. So to an extent, I can agree with you. But on the other side of this topic is that with review bombing, in a lot of ways, it's the only way to send a clear message to the developers because they'll just ignore the consumer on every other level. So a lot of people feel that this is the only way for us to get our message out there. Agree with it or not, that's just how people feel, and that's what people are going to say with review bombing is that, we felt like we've been wronged in terms of like the game we bought not being what it is anymore, or someone insulting the community or something like that, and we're going to, hurt them where they'll feel it. Hit them where they'll feel it, which, you could say it's a dirty tactic or not ethical, and that's your personal opinion on whether that is or isn't. But I think that's just my collection of why people review bomb, and to some extent I can understand it, but it depends on how legitimate of a grievance it is, which again is going to be subjective because some people take things are more sensitive to certain things than others. So it really depends on the person you are, what you find important about a game or not. But I think I've ranted about review bombing for long enough, and we're going to move on to the 116th daily poll. Is the Atari VCS a good value? And I got a little bit late to this, but the pre-orders for the Atari VCS went up on GameStop and Walmart, I think. I know GameStop, but there might have been a few other platforms, and it's really, really expensive. Like, you could probably, it's like, I think it's essentially if you want to get it with a controller, because they sell a bottle of it without a controller, because why would you want to buy a console with a controller? Atari thinks there's a market of people who want to buy a console without a controller. Granted, it is a Linux box, essentially. It's like a Linux, sort of kind of modified Linux box that does work with mouse and keyboard or, your own controller. But I imagine most people, a lot of people are just going to be, old boomers who just want to remember the old Atari games. And if you are one of those people, on Amazon, Atari Flashback, $70, maybe even less than that. You can get all the old Atari games on one thing. You can get it now. You don't have to spend hundreds of bucks. You don't have to spend hundreds of bucks. You don't have to, wait for this pile of shit to get onto your doorstep. Just buy an Atari Flashback if you only want to play the old Atari games, because you don't need. Okay, but I'm not going to go into another rant. But that's just all I'm going to say. Let's see. So most people, 60%, don't care about the Atari VCS. I can definitely respect that. 10% say there isn't enough information for them to decide, and then 30% say they think the Atari VCS is a bad value, and then nobody thinks it's a good value, because I don't think it is. Because why would you want to pay for it? It's not going to get any games. It's too weak. Well, okay, I said I wasn't going to get into a rant. We'll get into the replies. Retro84 says, not enough information for him to make a decision either way. He's got his eye on the Intellivision Amico, though. The Intellivision Amico might be pretty interesting, because it'll have a new Earthworm Jim game on it by Doug TenNapel, if I'm getting that correctly, which is interesting, but I don't see why he wouldn't go to do like some crowdfunding and release on like as many platforms as possible. But I don't know, Amico, what was it? I don't know. Whatever company is it Mattel that's behind the television? Might have given a lot of money, or whoever is doing that system. But yeah. So that's pretty interesting. So that's pretty interesting. This is the closest thing I could find to a positive comment about the Atari VCS. Basically, every other one was pretty negative. But we got Twidger who says at first he was thinking of voting it's a bad value. Then he thought that it's it's not a bad value. That it's a bad value. That it's that it has no value as a game console. After more thought, he decided he didn't give enough fucks to care if it had value and quit thinking about it. And I can definitely understand Twidget. Is that a little bit of a rant here? I'll get into it. Is that I don't. Who is the Atari VCS for? If all you want to do is play the old Atari games, you can go on Amazon Atari Flashback. I talked about it before. If you want a media PC, you can build one or buy one yourself, and you can control the specs of it. I know there are people who are just pure like Linux enthusiasts and will buy like any Linux PC. I think I saw a few comments on the Indiegogo that was to that effect. And if you're one of those people, I can understand why you'd be drawn to the Atari VCS, but you probably get more fun out of getting a Raspberry Pi, whatever. And then I guess, if you're an Atari fanboy, but I imagine if you're an Atari fanboy, that the Atari now isn't the same Atari that made the 2600 that you fell in love with back in the 70s and the early 80s. So I don't see like why you, unless you were like hardcore, like I need to own every Atari system ever made, then I guess I can kind of understand. But if you're someone with a gaming PC or a console, like most like most people who would probably be looking to buying this thing are, then why would you buy this? Or if you're looking to get a game console, I mean the Switch is going to be around the same price, probably cheaper, and it will come with a controller. It's going to have more games. It actually has a future, and it's around the same. I think it's more powerful or around the same power as the Atari VCS. So the Atari VCS will be able to play modern games, but stuff like Ori and 2D, the 2D platformers, indie games, it might be able to play some AAA games, like maybe like a BioShock Infinite at 30 frames a second on low settings, if you're lucky. But I can't imagine like Ubisoft or Activision chomping at the bit to get their games on the Atari VCS. I mean, the Activision won't even put Call of Duty on the Switch, and you think they're going to do it on the Atari VCS? So I could make like a whole video about the Atari VCS, but because there's just so much to talk about. Like the promotional video itself is pure garbage. The product itself is going to be pure garbage, and it doesn't have any market, and it's been a complete disaster to follow since its inception. So with that said, we're going to move on to the 117th daily poll, which is, do you prefer first or third person shooters? And another one that just sort of randomly popped in my head. And the results were pretty interesting. 15% of you guys don't play shooters, 33% play first-person shooters, 23% prefer third person, and then 28% like both equally. And that's where I'm at. As long as it's a good game, then I'll play it. That's essentially where I'm at. We've got Garrett, who says third-person shooters are garbage these days. And I'm not going to read the whole comment. It's a bit long, and I want to, in the interest of time, but he basically says it's the over-the-shoulder perspective that ruins it for him. It messes with the camera. It doesn't give you good aim. So, and then he says that a lot of games will let you switch shoulders, but it just doesn't fix the problem. It just it's like you don't have enough field of view. You don't have enough view on one side. And then, if you switch to the other, then it's just reversed. So I can understand that over the shoulder is a bit annoying. It's something that I've gotten used to, in like most, games, like most, over the shoulder games are like a bit of annoying, but after a couple of minutes, I'm used to it, Garrett. So it's not the biggest problem, but, a nice center camera is definitely the best for third person games. And for first-person games, field of view, that's what you need. Like, if you make a first-person game, to me, it's a requirement to have a field of view slider on PC. If you don't, then I don't know what you're smoking. We've got Thomas JCG, who says third person is a lot more cinematic and realistic. And games like Mass Effect and Resident Evil 2 are fantastic to play and watch. And this is sort of interesting. I'd say, this is definitely one that's more positive into third-person games in terms of I guess realism, because you can see the character moving around and, get immersed and, really feel like you're playing as a character. I'd say first person does that for me. First person does that more for me, but I love Mass Effect. Mass Effect 2 is probably one of the reasons why I am as big into video games as I am. So I can definitely agree that the Mass Effect series is very fun to play. But the first Mass Effect was really janky, but 2 and 3 played like a dream. But that's just my opinion on that. I can see where Thomas is going. I remember seeing another comment saying that, I think it was from Volta, I'm not sure, saying that essentially the third-person games people thought had better stories, and then there was some debate about that, about how that's not something that's specific to the genre of third-person shooters versus first-person ones. So it's pretty interesting. So I think a lot of preference of third person versus first person shooters is going to be on the games that you remember from each genre. If you've played a lot of first person shooters like Resident Evil 2 and Mass Effect, and you've only played like Call of Duty, some of the Battlefields, and first person shooters, and you like, story, single player based games, you're going to like first person shooters more. So I can definitely understand that. So it's not as much as like how each genre plays in general, it's like what the games that are in genres. If that makes any sense. So in the same vein of the last topic, Daily Poll 118 is: do you prefer real time or turn-based strategy games? And basically same methodology around this one. So it was a good split. If one person doesn't play strategy games, 9% prefer real time, 39% prefer turn based, and 48% like both equally. I got into StarCraft back in the day, and I really had a lot of fun with it. I think it's a good game. I just suck at StarCraft, and basically that would be true with any RTS. I love Civilization. I play way more Civilization. I play like almost 500 hours of Civilization 5, and I played over 115 of Civ 6. And on my new computer, I've got a game going on. I'm playing as England, and I'm on a nice big continent next to Germany and Russia. And I haven't gotten to a war yet, but I'm going to soon at some point. But that is just that. We're going to move on to. Aileron's comment, who says, definitely prefer turn-based, although I put a lot of hours into a few RTSs. So, I've only really played StarCraft, but I can definitely understand where Aileron is at with that. I do love turn-based games because I'm pretty slow in a lot of ways, the way I think. So turn-based games really let me, think things through. Whereas RTSs, you just have to react to everything and have to move your fingers fast, which I'm not good at. For the people who are, it works really well, but that's just not me. Hyper Weasel says RTS games tend to have more action, and most RTS games focus on controlling large armies, which he finds really exciting. However, he hasn't played any RTS game in a while now. We might try getting back into it. Was thinking of trying to get Total Warhammer 2 at some point. So I can understand. RTS games are more action intense. There's definitely that sort of like rush that you get like with these like big army battles, not knowing who's going to win, like desperately trying to make sure, like, stimming your soldiers in StarCraft, making sure they're going alive, getting like some like I forget, like the planes that fly, the health, the medevacs, I think, getting like a few medevacs over to try and save your army, or pulling out a few extra marauders just to like give you an edge against the vehicle or something like that. So you can definitely understand that that rush. But we're going to move on to the 119th daily poll. Does a battle royale mode make a game better? And this is one that I randomly thought of too. And looking at it, I forgot to put the link onto. I forgot the link. I forgot the link of the last daily poll, so I will go and fix that. I will go and fix that. But for now, battle royale. Let's see. A battle royale makes a game worse, which is 25%. A battle royale mode makes a game better. That's 8%. A battle royale mode doesn't affect the quality of a game. That's 13%. 19% don't care about games that can have battle royale modes, and 33% think a battle royale mode makes a game better or worse depending on the battle royale mode's quality. So those are the results, and we'll go into the replies. We've got Lapham, who says strictly worse. He says if the game was designed as a battle royale and start, then it's perfectly okay, since hopefully that there's time and dedication into making it. And if it's a shooter if it's like a regular shooter that just wants to cash in on the hype, on a fad, then Lapham wasn't something to fuck themselves, because they should have made a compelling product in the first place that can stand by itself instead of jumping on the popularity bandwagon. I think he's talking about Fallout 76. Those two, the add-in modes are dog shit, in terms of battle, balance, time response, those sorts of things. I can definitely agree with Lapham. A lot of battle royale modes definitely feel like they're forced in. Looking at you, Firestorm, and whatever Fallout 76's battle royale mode is, I'm not going to download Fallout 76 just so I can play Fortnite in Wasteland. So, but we're going to move on to the next reply from Comfortably Buzzed, who says, Battle Royale is his favorite PvP mode. He likes dabbling in others from time to time, but BR is his bread and butter, just like the fact that your success or failure is entirely dependent on how well you play. There are no teammates to carry you or drag you down. If you lose, you have nobody to blame but yourself, but if you win, you get to take all of the credit. So I can understand this mindset, and, for the, like Laugh, I'm saying, like, I can understand Laugh's comment. BR mode in a game that, didn't have one before is going to be bad because, you're viewing the developers as selling out. That's not really true. But if you're a person who loves Battle Royale and that's what you play mostly, then having a bad Battle Royale is better than having none at all in a game that you bought. And I think that's where Comfortably Buzz is getting at, which I can understand that. And that was the last comment of the day, and this is the end of the 17th episode of Poll Review. Hopefully I have got that right. But if you like this video, you guys can give it a like. If you didn't, you can dislike that. It won't hurt my feelings. And if you want to stick around for the next poll review or whatever else I upload next, you can hit that subscribe button. Leave a comment below whatever you think about this episode, or if you got any ideas for poll topics. I'm basically out of ideas at this point, so any ideas are appreciated. And if you want to be shouted out in any sort of way, then just say that in the comment below, or just say it in the comment, and I will make sure that I give you whatever ups that you want. But for now, I think I've taken up enough of your time, and I will be going. So see you.